So as we've seen in the previous slides, there's different factors that could influence the value of a currency, the supply or demand for a currency. Generally speaking, just think about it as anytime you buy goods and services, either here or abroad, when that changes, it's going to change the demand and supply of currency. Same thing for assets. But there's also this risk-taking, speculation, or risk avoidance hedging activities that can happen as well, which we don't get to in this class. But overall, we could see that it's either on the goods side or on the asset side. So if we look at demand QA, well, there'll be whatever influences net exports, and there'll be everything that influences net capital outflow. Let's look at a few examples. The domestic price of exports goes up. So let's say that the price of Canadian paper goes up due to a pollution tax. So carbon tax is introduced, or another form of pollution tax is introduced. And for some reason, this good, whether it's paper, steel, or something else, goes up in price. Well, all of a sudden, foreign buyers will decide to demand less Canadian dollars because they're going to buy less of this good. So therefore, they're going to supply less foreign exchange. Since they're not buying as much, demand/supply shifts left. If we think of that diagram we had in the previous video, well, as that happens, as that supply curve shifts left, we're going down this segment here, and we're leading to the Canadian currency depreciating. So that's one way to see it, or you could see the demand QA and then that export curve would shift left, which would lead to the real exchange rate fall. Foreign price of imports. So if the price of Volkswagen or other imports goes up, same kind of idea. We will demand less foreign exchange. We won't buy as much of their cars. We'll buy somewhere else. So that euro for Volkswagen in Europe will go down, and our currency will appreciate relative to theirs. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit more tricky and a little bit more interesting. There's a question relating to this. I like to come back to this question. It's this idea that if both countries suffer the same level of inflation, will the relative prices of both goods remain the same? If the relative price of both goods remain the same, there's no people going to buy more from one country or the other. So there's no real effect on demand and supply. So if we all experience more inflation, we shouldn't see a change in the exchange rate. However, if we have a change in overall price level different in different countries, so let's say we have more inflation here than we have in Europe, well, essentially the price of our goods are going up at a higher rate than theirs, making our goods relatively more expensive than theirs. Therefore, the demand for our goods and our currency will go down, and the demand for their goods and their currency will go up, leading to the Canadian currency to depreciate. Once again, you could look at this through any of the two graphical analyses and see that outcome. Expansionary monetary policy in Canada, a drop in interest rates to try to stimulate investment. Well, there's less of an incentive to invest is a bad word here. Less of an incentive to put money aside. So financial investment. Because the goal of dropping interest rates is to stimulate investment in real estate, or like building new infrastructure, buying new equipment, and other things of that nature. So this drop in interest rates is to stimulate and that GDP, but at the same time, it makes money flow elsewhere. So there's capital outflows. As more money flows elsewhere, we would see that net capital outflow curve and the MAN QA shift right. And as that happens, the real exchange rate falls. If I think about the way I represent the exchange rate, well, as this happens, we would demand more foreign currency and supply more Canadian currency. So on my graph, we would have the supply of Canadian currency shift right, leading to a decrease in the value of our currency. I'm sorry if I'm not labeling these. I just want to make sure I go through fast. If you want to see the labels, make sure that you understand this is supply of Canadian dollars, which is the demand for foreign. And if I look, and this is my little e, my exchange rate. And over here, I have my real exchange rate. And essentially in this graph with the net exports here and net capital outflow here, net capital outflow would shift to the right, leading to this drop in value of the currency. Either way, you see it the same way. Okay, and here drop in interest rates leads to the currency to depreciate and net exports to go up. And we can notice this on this graph as well, that as this interest rate goes down, the quantity of net export has actually gone up. How does an increase in the price of the barrel of oil affect the Canadian dollar? I'll let you guys think about this. So think about where it's produced and so on and so forth. So try to analyze this through. It's a little bit more complicated. There's different answers you could put for this depending on what you assume, but just go through the process and try to figure it out.